At its peak, it stretched across 1.4 million square kilometers. It controlled the most important trade routes on Earth. It had a professional army, a navy, a postal system, and a standardized currency. And your history teacher never mentioned it once. This is the story of the Songhai Empire, and it may be the most powerful civilization Africa has ever produced. The year is 1464. West Africa is already home to great kingdoms. The Mali Empire, which we covered in our Timbuktu episode, is fading, power is shifting, and into that vacuum steps a man named Sunni Ali. Sunni Ali was not a politician, he was a conqueror. In the space of 28 years, he captured city after city, kingdom after kingdom, until the Songhai Empire covered more land than France, Spain, Germany, Portugal, and Italy combined. Let that sink in. Every major Western European nation combined, and Songhai was still larger. He took Timbuktu in 1468. He took Janneh after a 7-year siege, one of the longest sieges in African history. He built a river navy on the Niger that controlled thousands of miles of waterway. He was still expanding when he died in 1492, the same year Columbus was stumbling onto a continent he did not know existed. But the empire's greatest moment came after Sunni Ali. In 1493, a general named Askia Muhammad seized power, and where Sunni Ali was a warrior, Askia was a builder. He reorganized the entire empire into provinces, each with its own governor, its own tax system, its own courts. He standardized weights and measures across 1.4 million square kilometers so that a merchant in Timbuktu and a merchant in the Sahara were using the exact same system. He built schools. He expanded Timbuktu's universities. He made Songhai the most literate civilization in the medieval world outside of China. He traveled to Mecca, like Mansa Musa before him, and returned with scholars, judges, and architects. He invited the greatest minds of the Islamic world to come and build in Songhai. At its peak under Askia the Great, the Songhai Empire had a population of between 30 and 60 million people, more than the entire population of Europe at the same time. So why have you never heard of this? Because in 1591, a Moroccan army crossed the Sahara with gunpowder weapons. Songhai's cavalry, the greatest in Africa, had never faced cannons before. The empire collapsed within months. And when European historians wrote the story of Africa, they started from the collapse, not from the 150 years of extraordinary civilization that came before it. They showed you the ruins. They never showed you what stood there before the ruins. The Songhai Empire was not a primitive kingdom in the desert. It was a superpower. It was the largest, most organized, most sophisticated state in the world outside of China and the Ottoman Empire. And it was African. This is Africa Untold, the story they buried, told in full. Subscribe because next week we go even deeper. We uncover the African scientist who mapped the stars 600 years before NASA existed, and whose calculations were so accurate modern astronomers still cannot explain how he did it. Africa Untold Heritage, the story continues.